not saying that to say that trans women aren't women. I'm just saying that those pussies that they got. You know what I mean?
Another joke without a punchline other than trans women. I'm not saying that trans women aren't women, but those pussies. You know what I mean? And the crowd erupts with laughter. How hilarious the idea of a trans person with a vagina. How stupid. That's not a joke, Dave. It's just like your Me Too joke where you're just like, me too. That was stupid. Trans vaginas. I don't like those. That's not a joke. That's just being hateful.
Saying it's not pussy, but it's like beyond pussy or impossible pussy.
I'm not saying it's not pussy. I'm just saying it's like beyond pussy or impossible pussy. Agreeing that it is worse, it is a imitation at best, but that is following up him being like, I wouldn't want that. So yeah, Dave, it does kind of sound like you're speaking less of trans vaginas than you think of cis vaginas. And that's your right. You're allowed to not want to have sex with me because I don't want to have sex with you. It is interesting to me, Dave, how much time you spend thinking about other people's genitals.
Tastes like pussy, but that's not quite what it is.
Tastes like pussy, but it's not quite what it is. Not to say that transgender women are women, but I mean, their vaginas are fake.
I'm in trouble now.
And then he laughs that he's in trouble, as if a few trans people being discriminated against and being upset about it on Twitter are going to affect him. You want to know what punching down is, Dave? Making fun of somebody while a whole room laughs at them with you, because you know that you're not going to face the consequences of what you say. They will. You're rich, you're internationally acclaimed, you have a room of people cheering for what you just said, and I'm sure a million transphobes are going to eat this up.
You didn't know that one of the coolest people I ever met was a transgender woman.
Now we get to learn the heartfelt story of why he can't be transphobic because he knows a trans.
Be there, white trans women laughed and loud and hard, especially the trans jokes. Very puzzling.
I think it's interesting to me that he thinks it's puzzling that a trans person would laugh at trans jokes because every trans person I know loves to make trans jokes in an environment where they feel safe and not judged. They like to make trans jokes about themselves. It's not as funny, Dave, when you're making trans jokes to a bunch of people who are like, ha! Those trannies!
And I was a hero. It's very moving. I could not dislike somebody that felt that way about me.
I could not dislike somebody who felt that way about me. He could not have more clearly implied he was predisposed to not like this trans person. That's essentially what he implied.
I needed an opening act. And I remembered that trans woman. She started saying a bunch of wild stuff. I was like, relax. I don't want any pussy. I was on.
He doesn't miss an opportunity to be like, oh, no. I wouldn't have sex with you. I wouldn't have that impossible vagina. You, trans.
This woman had only done stand-up comedy 8 times in her life. This little to no experience. And now she's about to open a show. She was dressed to the motherfucking nines. I mean, I'm transphobic, and even I was like, you look nice. Man, you should have seen her work. This bitch bombed for 45 minutes straight.
I do love this heartfelt moment where we laugh about how bad of a comedian this amateur trans comedian was.
It impressed me. Any other comedian I've ever seen, if they had bombed as bad as she did, would have snuck out of the back of the theater and went home crying. She found a seat right up in front, sat up there, and was laughing as hard as she always laughs, as if nothing bad had even happened to her. And I saw her show. Something bad happened to her.
He has to remind us how bad she was.
The crowd didn't like that shit at all, because she sucked. And a guy in the back of the room stood up. Daphne's hair was dyed blonde at the time. The guy screamed out. His energy felt wild as fuck. He said, hey, Daphne! It's the carpet matched the drapes. Yeah, it was fucked up. She kind of laughed. It was weird. And she didn't even look all the way back. She said, sir, I don't have carpets. I have hardwood floors. Just like
I have to say, the only redeemable thing for me about this special is Daphne's joke. I don't have carpets. I have hardwood floors. What an icon.
Boy, when she said that shit, it blew the roof off the place. Cut through all the tension with that one joke. She made up for 45 minutes of a stinker of a show.
Remember, she was bad.
Now she looks at me like I'm not her friend anymore. She said, I don't need you to understand me. I said, what? She said, I just need you to believe. Just like this, she goes, that I'm having a human experience.
Couldn't have said it better, Daphne.
Because she didn't say anything about pronouns. She didn't say anything about me being in trouble. She said, just believe I'm a person and I'm going through it.
Because she didn't say anything about pronouns. Because she didn't get me in trouble. You know why she didn't get you in trouble, Dave? Because nobody can get you in trouble for being transphobic. And I guarantee you, Daphne was of a generation where it was perfectly acceptable for her to be dunked on for every which way of how trans she was, including that guy that she had an amazing retort to. I'm sure she'd heard that line a million times from somebody trying to come for her hair. I don't see how he can't see the connection between transphobia and what he's talking about. I hate that pronouns have become an issue as if people are being militantly policed, when all it is about trying to create a space for trans people to not feel so uncomfortable. But
And don't forget my opening act, Daphne. The crowd stood up. And I looked at her, tears came out of her eyes. She couldn't believe it was happening. I couldn't believe it was happening because her show stunk.
remember, she's bad.
Oh my God, she is funny. I pulled her aside, I said, you're hilarious. I didn't know that when you were on stage.
Because remember, she bombed.
When Sticks and Stones came out, a lot of people in the trans community were furious with me, and apparently they dragged me on Twitter. I don't give a fuck because Twitter's not a real place.
Yeah, it's not a real place. And that's why acting like there's this big bad gay agenda after you is such a dishonest way to paint the issue. Trans people are angry because of all the shit they go through. And what do? They tend to spend most of their time directing it at each other or at people who make them feel small. And that's why you've attracted all this attention, Dave. Why do you need to compare them to imitation human? It's gross because people see us that way. People who kill us are the people who see us that way.
She wrote a tweet that was very beautiful. What she said was, punching down on someone requires you to think less of him. And I know him, and he doesn't. He doesn't punch up. He doesn't punch down. He punches lines, and he's a master at his craft. I'm a friend. It took a lot of heart to defend me like that. And when she did that, the trans community dragged that bitch all over Twitter.
Well, there's nothing that the trans community loves more than dragging another trans person, so I do believe this. Sadly.
They was going in on her, and she was holding her own because she's funny. But 6 days after that wonderful night I described to you, my friend Daphne killed herself. I don't know if it was them dragging her, I don't know what's going on in her life, but I bet dragging her didn't help.
What happened to this woman is very sad, and I'm not going to pretend like it probably had nothing to do with her being dragged by trans Twitter. There's nothing more real than the effect it has when a trans person loses their community. We've seen a lot of trans people who getting criticized so wildly by their tribe does lead them to kill themselves. But I do think it's interesting how after all this, after literally telling an example of her experiencing public transphobia, he then says, I don't know if it was the trans people that made her do it, but she killed herself. He knows that he is making it seem as though she killed herself because of the trans community. I'm not going to say what did or didn't happen, but all I know is that that is a dishonest way to paint it, because trans people who do kill themselves never do it for one reason. They always have been struggling with mental health. Most trans people struggle with mental health for their whole lives, and I guarantee you that it is not helped by casual transphobia. It doesn't matter if you personally don't think less of trans people, Dave. You have said on a national platform, number 5 in US Netflix, so that's how many people are watching this, and you have told them all that trans women, they are imitation women that are less than and worse. And even if that doesn't change the way that you think of them, it does change the way other people think of them. And it has a profound impact on the way we're treated and the way we're abused.
Like Daphne lied to me. She always says she identified as a woman. And then one day she goes up to the roof of a building and jumps off and kills herself. Clearly. Only a man would do some gangster shit like that.
To me, that joke is gross because, again, There is no punchline about a trans woman killing herself. In this case, the punchline is it was a manly thing to do, and everybody laughs. There is a difference when you have a national platform, and I believe that. I'm sure there will be children that watch this. I'm sure that there will be young, impressionable people that watch this and think, that's hilarious. And maybe it is for them, but it's not hilarious when you're trans. It's not hilarious to be trans, and we're not a punchline.
I got in touch with the family and I started a trust fund for her daughter.
The fact that he set up a trust fund for this woman's daughter is a very beautiful thing. I think, and I do believe this, that if he truly cared about being seen as transphobic, he could do the same. He could set up or donate money to charities that help trans homeless youth, maybe Black trans homeless youth, of which there are many who are going to be the most affected by this rhetoric he's spewing. If he wanted to change his public opinion, I genuinely believe he could, but he doesn't.
And I'll tell that little girl, young lady, I knew your father. And he was a wonderful woman.
You can call a trans woman a father, but why? Why he? I'm sure that this seems like nitpicking, but it seems like he's taking every opportunity he can to belittle the reality that trans people live. She killed herself like a man. I told his daughter that he was a great father. It just seems like not honoring her memory and not honoring who she was. There's no reason he couldn't have said, oh, I knew your mother and she was a wonderful woman. But no, he had to make the punchline, he was a wonderful woman, because isn't that funny?
Empathy is bisexual. It must go both ways.
Well, that's true.
Taking a man's livelihood is akin to killing him. I'm begging you, please do not abort the baby.
That siren, that's trying to let you know, red flag. Taking a man's livelihood is the same as killing him. Right after telling the story of a trans woman who was likely bullied to the point of suicide, and he said they're the same. Maybe I'm reading into it, but it really does seem like he's trying to make himself out as the real victim of the trans community and be like, you guys are the bullies.
LGBTQ, LMNOPQIZ, it is over. I am not telling another joke about you until we are both sure that we are laughing together. I'm telling you, this is done.
Interesting how after making a joke of the name of the community, he's like, I'm out. I'm not saying anything else about you guys. Well, he has already kind of said it all. Well, that was exhausting. Sure that the only people that are going to be upset about this are going to be trans people, and maybe that's just the way it is. But I really hope that this video could help you see why some of the things he said, I believe, are very transphobic. And not only that, I don't even know if he himself is transphobic. All I know is that that is the energy that he is creating to talk for an hour just about trans people, because he knew it would get him attention, it would get him canceled by the gay agenda, and ultimately, I guarantee you, it's only going to help him get more. Maybe that's exactly what I'm doing here, but I hope that I was at least able to give a trans person's perspective on this. He says that empathy is a two-way street, and I understand, and I agree with a lot of his points. I've said throughout this video, I think he makes good points about race relations. I think he makes good points about selective outrage and virtue signaling. But he says these regressive practices are a result of people caring more about trans people than Black people. I do not think it's fair to put minorities up against each other. I don't know a single trans person who is for trans rights and against the rights of others. We are not powerful enough to stand on our own. I just hope that someday he can see the damage that he's doing. If you did like this video, I would appreciate a like, maybe a subscribe. Maybe just let me know down in the comments what you think. If you didn't like this video, please let me know. Please dislike it.